Hey everybody, I'm Eric Mueller, your host, and welcome back to the Eric Mueller Show, the podcast where we explore what makes any successful person's inner clock tick. Do you want to build wealth through successful real estate investing? If you were to pick a property right now to invest in, what would you look for? Don't worry, we've got Zack Boothe, the founder of Driving for Dollars Mastery, on the show today, and through his company, he shares his insider secrets to finding massively discounted properties regardless of experience level. Now, just a few years ago, Zack was a window cleaner. You can still find his window cleaning tutorial videos on YouTube, and those videos had a lot of success. He even was landed on the History Channel through doing that. Now, although he achieved success through his window cleaning business, he always dreamed of being a real estate investor. Zack took a leap of faith, he walked away from window cleaning, and within a handful of years, he was making over $1 million per year from real estate investing. Zack now has his own company, a successful podcast, and still runs a YouTube channel where he dedicates his time giving back and helping others get started in the competitive game of real estate. Now, recently on his YouTube channel, he did a 40-day real estate challenge where the goal was to turn $1,000 into $40,000 in 40 days. Sounds pretty crazy, right? Well, he was wildly successful at that. He made $93,000 and also purchased 2 rental properties with over $100,000 of equity in that process. Zack built his dream real estate business, and he's here to show you that you can do it too. Let's head on over to the interview. All right, so welcome back to the Eric Mueller Show, the podcast where we explore what makes any successful person's inner clock tick. Welcome to the show, Zack Boothe.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here, man. It's a pleasure. You're kind of really in that sector I feel like a lot of people are interested in learning more about, the real estate market, investing, learning how to build, wealth that can accumulate going forward. So, my first thought is maybe you could touch on what are some common mistakes that you see first-time real estate investors make, and how might we be able to avoid those mistakes, Zack?
Love it. Great question. So, my first thought is the main problem that people have is they spend all of their time just researching, studying, podcasts, YouTube videos, and they never break out of that analysis, that study phase, and start taking action. Right. So I've been there, right? And I've coached hundreds of people now to have success. And, I have a success wall in my office with a picture of all my successful students. I've helped people make millions, millions per year, particular students. And so that was the biggest thing that I had to teach them to overcome, is to start taking action, and exactly what action steps and what order need to be taken. Right. So that would be the number one mistake. And then from there, once you start taking action, there's a lot of mistakes you can make. Right. So
right.
The next part of this is like, okay, Zack, I want to take action. Give me an action. What is the action? And my suggestion is this: you get good at finding discounted properties. Most people think real estate investing is, multifamily syndication, meaning finding giant apartment complexes at a discount and putting together a fund and turning them into profitable rentals, or flipping houses, or real estate wholesaling, right? Which is a little closer to just finding discounted properties. But it doesn't matter what kind of real estate you want to invest in, commercial, residential, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what your exit strategy is, meaning what you do with the properties once you find them, right? Because if you can get good at finding properties at 40 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar, you kind of got to be really, really silly, to not make a ton of money. It doesn't really matter what you do with them. You could turn it over for a finder's fee and make an absolute fortune, right? If you can get good at doing that one thing.
Right. Yeah. And you've had a lot of success in finding those discounted properties, or properties that are the good value buys, like you just mentioned, 40 cents on the dollar. What are you looking for that tells you that they're being sold at a discount? Or are there any features that you'd be able to share with people, even just getting started in this type of real estate investing, to look for?
Yeah. So when I first started and I heard people saying, oh, you got to find motivated sellers, you got to get properties at 50 cents on the dollar. So these are the thoughts I had. And maybe many of the listeners are having these same thoughts like, oh, sounds great, but that's not possible, especially in this economy, especially with all this inflation. No one would ever sell their house or their property at that much of a discount. There's no way that's possible. right? The only reason that particular person's saying that is he has hidden motives. He's trying to sell me something, right? He's selling a pipe dream. It's too good to be true. So it is. Those are the doubts and the thoughts that I had when I first heard about this kind of stuff, right? And so I was very skeptical, and I had an experience happen to me that changed my mind. And I'm kind of going a roundabout way to answer this question, but I'll explain exactly how we find them now on a large scale. But I think it's really important to overcome that mindset and belief that it is possible before I give you the action step, right? So what happened to me is I was washing windows. I had a window cleaning company for a decade. And I wanted to break into the real estate space, and I had all these obstacles, trying to buy rentals, and I didn't have very good debt to income ratios. So I couldn't get loans. I didn't have a lot of money to put down. I didn't have the 25% down to buy investment properties. And I just had all these obstacles and barriers. I had a young family, barely scraping by, paycheck to paycheck. And I was washing windows for a super wealthy gentleman, right? And I had heard about this, finding properties at discount, finding motivated sellers. And I thought, BS, right? It's all a scam. And so I was washing windows for a guy named Stan. He was an older guy, huge house, just the kindest guy, just a true gentleman. And I had asked him what he had done for a living. And he's like, oh, I'm still a real estate investor. He's like, I retired from being a civil engineer in my 20s. And because I became so successful at developing land, I'm a developer. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so I just wanted to know everything about him because I was aspiring to do that. I was in my mid 20s. And I wanted to do that so bad. And at the end of our conversation, I was like, man, if I could just get 2 rentals this year, it would be life-changing. And he's like, oh, that's convenient. I got these 2 rentals that I don't want to deal with. Property manager bailed on me 4 months ago. I haven't collected rents. It's got deferred maintenance. I just don't really care about them. Would you buy them from me? And I said, sure. And he said, well, I'll give you a good price. I'll give them to you for $500,000. I didn't know what they were worth at the time, but that was a huge discount. And he knew it. And he's like, but I just don't want to deal with it. You deal with the tenants and that kind of stuff. I was like, well, I can't get debt for that much. I don't know what to do. And he said, well, I'll be the bank for you. I'll finance them. And I was like, okay, great. What do we do? I didn't know what I was doing. This guy was way more experienced, way more educated, who's worth millions, probably hundreds of millions. He had 2 giant, developments, huge developments, probably worth 10 million each with all his own money in them, no debt. Like the dude was just loaded. And I was like, okay, well, I can't get $500,000 in debt. I don't have the ability to do that right now. And he said, okay, well, how much can you put down? And he's like, could you put 10% down, which would have been $50,000. I was like, no, I can't do that. And, he's like, well, how much could you put down? I was like, oh, I got a couple $1,000,
Yeah.
And he's like, that works. I was like, oh my gosh. And then he pulls out a piece of white blank paper out of his printer and starts writing down the agreement, the terms of the financing and the purchase price and all that. And I was like, whoa, Stan, like, what are you doing? We need an attorney, right? We need like all this official paperwork. And he's like, no. Let me educate you on the process. And he's like, I'm going to fill this out. We're going to sign it. He said, this isn't a done deal. I'm going to go on vacation tomorrow. You're going to take this to the title company and you're going to have them pull a preliminary title search, right? And he starts educating me on the process. And he's like, and then you're going to call a real estate agent and confirm that I'm giving you a really good deal. Right. And then you're going to find out what they could rent for. And then I also want you to go knock on the door and talk to the tenants and try and get in and see them so you can inspect the properties and make sure this is something you want to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm like terrified, but I go home that night with the purchase contract for 2 houses. I was so excited. And I ended up closing on these deals. I got them at a huge discount. I cleaned out I replaced one of the tenants, kept the other tenant, cleaned up the properties, and did a rent to own to the new tenants. Both of them cashed me out the next year. I made over $130,000 on those 2 deals, profit.
Wow.
A year later. And the rental income was like, I think it was like $900 more a month than my monthly payment to Stan.
Okay.
So I basically got these properties for nothing, for $2,000 out of pocket. And about another $1,000 in cleaning up the one unit and made $130,000, right, in a year. And I was blown away, right? That experience made me a believer because I saw it happen, right? The dude was way more educated, way more experienced, and he liked me, and he wanted to see me succeed, and he was okay with it because it was a convenience factor. He basically wanted a pawn shop for those houses. He didn't want to deal with it. And it was a huge blessing to me and my family. And the biggest blessing was I wasn't a skeptic anymore. I said, that was incredible. That was a deal of a lifetime, but I've been told I can get a deal of a lifetime every single week.
Yeah.
Right. If I put in the work, I can find the discounted opportunities, and I can quit this window cleaning business that I actually quite despise. Right. I wanted that freedom. I wanted financial freedom. I wanted time freedom. And so I went to work, right? I hired a mentor, and it was a rough couple of years to figure it out. But now at this point, what we have found is that when someone has a property that's a thorn in their side, kind of like Stan, we found that there's physical signs of neglect, right? Those two properties, they were nice and decent areas, they were nice properties, but there was obvious deferred maintenance, right? The one had a rain gutter that had fallen down, and there was some fascia and soffit that had come down as well, probably a major windstorm or something, or some ice in the winter. And the grass and everything was super dead, where the rest of the neighborhood was really nice. You could tell that they were not loved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so having that experience and doing a couple more deals, from, calling the eviction list and the tax delinquent list that I can get from the city, right? It's all public record, calling those people and getting a couple more deals, I realized there was physical signs of neglect, and I wasn't finding a lot of deals. My first 8 months of really jumping into the business, I made about $100,000, which is pretty good, right? I mean, I was super stoked. I was able to walk away from window cleaning, and I did it from pulling those lists from the city, right? The public lists, and just reaching out and seeing if people wanted to sell. And the deals that I did do, there was a lot of competition. Everyone was marketing to them. And I thought, there's got to be a better way, right? And so I started doing what's known as driving for dollars, right? It's basically you drive around in these neighborhoods where you'd like to find deals, and you look for the properties with physical signs of neglect, and then you find out who owns them and reach out and see if they want to sell. Before I had the system I have now, I would write down the names of the the address. I look it up on county record, find out who owned it. Is it owned? Who was on title, and then the mailing address and the property address, all public record on the county website. And then I would pay a company to get phone numbers and so forth, right? It was very time consuming to build a list of any size. Now we use an app called Deal Machine that allows us to drive through a neighborhood. It's basically a GPS, a Google Maps image, basically, right? You're driving through the neighborhood, you identify a house you want to market to, and you touch the house on the map, right? And what it'll do is it'll upload all of the potential seller's information in an Excel spreadsheet immediately. Their name, their number, the address, the mailing address, everything you need to market to that person, even their potential emails. Right? It's crazy. And now I can add over 100 properties every single hour of driving, right? You're just driving along, touching the phone, right? And once we build that list, we reach out and see if they want to sell. Doing that alone with 2 employees. So I have an acquisition manager who does all my leads and my appointments. And I have a marketing manager who sends all my postcards and gets all my phone numbers and uploads them into my cold calling system. And I have 3 cold callers, and 2 are in the Philippines and 1 is here. And the one that's here does the cold calling and the texting at the same time. So we send postcards, texting, and cold calling. And that's our team, a team of 6 people. I spend most of my time on coaching and teaching and serving other people. That's where I find my fulfillment. And I make over $1 million a year in that business by just doing that. That is my system, my strategy. And it has completely changed my life. So I was super long there on what we do and how we do it, but that's exactly how we're finding our deals.
No, Zach, that was a great story. I really appreciate how you tied in, the window cleaning with that switch, that you were passionate about getting into something, and you had a mentor that was able to lead you and kind of show you the way. So I really appreciate that story. I think that probably speaks to a lot of the listeners, as far as if you have a passion for something and you don't know what you're doing, you got to get taken under someone's wing, and you also got to take it upon yourself to seek out those opportunities. So after you had a taste for it, you continued to seek it out. You didn't just kick back and wait for the next stand to come along and show you how to do the next deal. So yeah, I think that's an awesome story. My question for you, building off that, is let's say you cold call and find out that someone's willing to sell, or you cold call 100 properties owners and 10 of them are willing to sell. What is the next step there? What is logistically, how do you go about that? Because that's certainly a question on my mind. I'm not even a homeowner. I don't really know too much about the process of how to go about buying a property. Would you share just a few quick details on that?
Yeah. So when you're trying to find properties at a discount, right? Not every single seller is going to be your ideal seller. Most people think that when you are talking to a seller, you have to convince them to sell at a discount. You have to tell them lies or be dishonest or take advantage of them. And that was one of the main things that kept me from joining the business or getting into this industry. Is like, okay, if I'm buying properties at 50 cents on the dollar, I'm stealing from people. I'm stealing their equity. I'm taking advantage of them. Like, that is horrible. I have no interest in that. That is not who I am. And when I met Stan, and it was a convenience factor, and he wanted to help me, and he knew he was giving him at a discount. I said, this is awesome. I served Stan. I helped him. I allowed him to focus on his developments, and he didn't have to deal with these properties. Right. And I made a ton of money. So it's like, okay, how do I do that? How do I duplicate that? And so, yes, the next part of the process is once you find someone that does want to sell using, driving for dollars or other outreach strategies, now we have to figure out what are their wants, what are their needs. And I tell my students this all the time. If your negotiation strategy changes when you have a family member call you that wants to sell their house, you're doing it completely wrong. Right? So what we do is we talk to them. We try and figure out what their needs are, what their timeline is, what's the condition of the house. And then we talk their options, even if those options don't make us money, because we truly want to understand the needs and desires of the client. Most of our people that say they want to sell, they actually just need a real estate agent. They just need to list it. They need to squeeze out as much as they want because that's what their wants and their needs are. And we tell them to do that. Right? And most people hear me say that and they don't believe it. They think that I might be a shark or a charlatan. Right. And, I'm sure we'll mention this 40-day challenge that I did to overcome all the skepticism and disbelief and doubt like I had in the beginning. But on the 40-day challenge, on day 4, you actually hear me have a conversation with a guy named Jerry. Very similar situation. Super wealthy guy, had a ton of rentals. And like when I called him, I said, "Hey, are you the owner of XYZ address?" He's like, hold on a sec. Honey, do we own the property? I was like, okay, this dude doesn't even know how many properties he has. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I was like, well, Jerry, it's okay. I mean, do you just have any properties you would like to sell? And he said, oh, matter of fact, I got 3. Or 2. He said 2 on the phone, and he ended up selling me 3. But he's like, I have 2 of my rentals that are kind of problems for me. I'd love to sell them. So, oh, great. Can you tell me about them? Right. And so this is the conversation, and I'll go over this particular conversation, but it's the same. It's the same every time. Right. And I say, okay, well, great, Jerry, can you tell me about the properties? And he told me how many bedrooms and how many baths and the condition. And he had completely remodeled them a couple of years ago. One of them, he put in a brand new drain field for the septic tank. And he obviously took really good care of them. He had good tenants that were paying. And I was like, Jerry, like, why would you sell me the properties? I mean, you obviously know I'm an investor. You're an investor. You understand that I need to get them at a discount. Why don't you just list them with a real estate agent and squeeze out as much as you can? That was exactly what I asked him. And you can hear it on the content that I give you guys for free. And his exact answer was, I don't care. That was exactly what he said. Right? Not at all what you expect people to say sometimes, but when they do, it's great, because that means you're going to be able to help him. He has underlying needs and wants. He doesn't want to deal with the problems. And so then I said, okay, well, fantastic. I'd be happy to buy him. Do you have a price in mind or something that you would like for him? And he told me $50,000 a property. And off a quick search, as is, they were worth about $110,000 to $150,000 each. Right. So I'm doing the numbers. I was like, okay, that's like $100,000 in profit right there. Right. I close on them, finish out the lease of the tenants. But I find out the tenants are on a month. So I, basically ask them to leave and list the properties and make over $100,000. I'm like, okay, this is a no-brainer. Let's do it. Right. So I line up an appointment and run to his house that night. His wife was very standoffish. I spent 2 hours just talking to them about life, their needs, their wants, what's going on. Not even negotiating price, because she was so standoffish. She was just looking at her tablet. She wouldn't even look at me. And very well-to-do people in a very nice home. and very educated people. And he served in the military, just a great man. I actually had him on my own personal podcast after I did this challenge. But the big thing is you just qualify them, right? You have that conversation. The same as if a family member called me. I had a cousin call me like a year and a half ago, and he said, "Hey, Zach, I want to sell you my house." I said, "Bro, I buy them at a discount, right?" That was my exact word. And I say the same thing to a potential seller, right? And I might not be your best option. I'd love to help you and I can buy them, but you might be able to make more if you just fix it up and list it yourself. That's what I said to him. That's what I say to potential sellers. And they're like, "Well, I don't really want to work with an agent. Oh, I don't have money or time to fix it up." Okay, well, what do you got going on? What's your time frame? What's your need? Right? And my cousin was a little bit behind on his payments. He was trying to cash out some equity. His wife was had some liver issues and needed to be closer to the hospitals and needed to move locations. And then he got a new job as well. So there was a bunch of factors that he needed to move quickly. And for him, it was convenience over price was what was most important to him. And I said, "Well, I'd be happy to help you and serve you. I mean, we could do a variation of things if you listed the property for sale just on KSL and Craigslist and those places." And we talked about options, and that deal didn't end up making me a ton of money, but the cool thing is 2 weeks ago, he actually came into my office. He's in a property right now that he's renting with an option to buy. And he wants to exercise the option and flip the house. And there's like a $60,000 flip available. He just doesn't have the financing. So he came to someone he trusted, which is me, so we can partner on the deal. Right. And so I'm serving and helping people, and people are still coming back and wanting to work with me because there's opportunities for all of us to become extremely wealthy in the real estate space, And so that's the suggestion, is you really understand their needs, their wants, and push them in a direction that they're asking for, right? You qualify them and then give them the option, even if it means I'm not making money. Like we just listed or had a lead that we sent to our real estate agent that got listed and went under contract yesterday. And we do flip some houses. And so he gives us a discount on our listings. And so it all works out in the end. I still kind of get paid when I refer a listing over.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a great point, because you're not cold calling these people and giving them a hard sell, like, I'm your only option, or trying to talk them into it. You're really like taking an ethical standpoint, which I think that's very much how you need to go about business in any way, shape, or form. You need to be, a man or a woman of the people, so to speak, and be able to be that communicator that can find the common ground, because you never know how much business you might have built off of that in the future based on that interaction. So I think that's a very good point. And you did mention the 40K in 40 days challenge. And yes, I definitely want to talk about that on your YouTube channel. You can find that video. For those listening, I'll tag on the show notes how to access that content. But Zach, what inspired you to pursue that challenge, and why did you specifically pick those numbers for that, 40,000 in 40 days?
Yeah. So I picked 40 grand because 40,000 is actually the average American income, or at least it was last year. Right. And it was like 40,000 and change. And I picked 40 days because I don't want to be down there forever. And it was a good marketing, 40 and 40 sounded sexy, right?
Yeah. It's like 30 under 30, 40 under 40.
Yeah. You gotta keep the numbers the same. So, right. I wasn't sure if I could do it, right? Most of your deals from first contact to revenues much further out than that, right? Because you got to find people, build a relationship. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 months to even put them under contract, and then finding a buyer, and so the whole reason I did this challenge, I'll kind of go back into why I started serving and helping people, why I started coaching, because it was never a plan to become a coach. I never like, oh, I need another stream of income. I didn't care. Like I was making a fortune in real estate. I was building my wealth, and I'm good. I don't need the money. I didn't really care. I wanted to have more freedom, but I found so much fulfillment in coaching. What had happened was 2018, I had done about $500,000 in income. And it was like my second full year of doing real estate, and walked away from, window cleaning a couple years before, and was just blown away, pinching myself from the success that I was having. I was just so grateful. I was able to provide a life for my family that I'd always dreamed of, and just had felt like I was falling short for so long. And I wanted to improve. I find that improvement is fulfillment. It's where I find joy. It's where I find self-worth, is if I'm growing as a person. not just financially, but the way I provide for my family, the amount of time and effort that I dedicate to my children. Like, I want my life to be better every single day, my fitness, my health, all those things. And so I was reading a self-help journal that my friend invited me to do with them. And it's the first 100 pages. It helps you create 3 big goals for that year and talks about what you have to do, who you have to become to accomplish that goal. And then the rest of it's a journal for the year, right? And you keep a daily journal. And one of the goals that I had set is the following year, I wanted to generate $1 million in income that year. And I honestly had no idea how. That was doubling what I had done the year before. And what I had done the year before, was 10 times what I had ever done. And so I was like, well, how do I do that? Like, how do I felt like I had tapped out my potential. I felt really intimidated by the goal. One of the things that said I had to do is I had to give away whatever I had set as a goal. So if I wanted more love, I had to give love. If I wanted money, I had to give money. And so I was like, okay, well, I have to give away $1 million. I was like, I don't have $1 million, but I want to take this thing serious. How do I give away $1 million? And I talked to my wife about it, and we thought, you know what? Why don't I teach this marketing system? Why don't I teach the way that I made $500,000 a year before, which was this driving for dollar system? Why don't I teach that to 10 people? I could easily put $500,000 or $1 million in 10 people's pockets, right? It's only $100,000 each, easy, right? I knew for sure it was easy to do, especially if they dedicate themselves. So I hand selected 10 people that I knew that were co-students of other events that I had gone to, people that I knew that were in the business, but were really hungry for more leads, more opportunities. And so I brought those 10 people on, and we went to work, and I started teaching them. And the coolest thing happened, right? The more I taught, the more I realized how many holes I had in my own system. I had learned so much from teaching because I got asked questions I'd never even thought of. I found mistakes and holes in my business. Like, one example, when I'd send postcards, I'd say, call or text this number for an offer. And I'd get all my calls. And I had a student one time go, hey, Zack, I'm having a hard time with this tracking phone number. None of the text messages are transferring over to my cell phone or my CRM like they're supposed to. And I was like, I've never received a text message off my postcards.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. I screwed up hundreds of thousands of dollars over a couple of years. I went in there. I went into the back end of my platform, of my tracking phone number platform called Callfire. And I'm seeing all these text messages. Yeah, I'd love an offer. Yeah, give me a call. I'm like,
oh no.
Oh my gosh, dude. An average deal for me is $30,000, bro. And so I'm just sick, right? I'm sick to my stomach. But that wasn't the only thing. That's just one of many mistakes I was making. So the more I taught, the more I served them, the more my business grew. I did 1.2 million that year, right? It blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. But more importantly was than the money, much more important was the passion and love that I had for serving and helping other people. One of my first students, Scott Dallinger, his first deal was $103,000 profit. He quit his corporate job full-time. Right. One of my other students, Michael McLeish, he's now just starting to mentor and help some people as well. But he texted me in a year and a half after he joined my coaching program. He himself made over $1 million from the system I taught him. Right.
Wow.
Just one of those original 10 accomplished my big goal. And I know Scott Dallinger's probably tripled that at this point as 2 acquisition managers, just crushing it. Right. And that's just a couple of the people of that original 10. And I fell in love with it, dude. I fell in love with that fulfillment, that purpose, that I felt like I actually had something that meant more to me than just getting up and going to work. I had financial freedom. I was able to put people in place to automate my processes, and I wanted to just coach. And so as I started to coach and teach people, I kept running into myself 6-7 years ago when I was a major skeptic. Right. Yeah. And I was like, how did I overcome the skepticism? How did I overcome that? And I thought, I met Stan. I saw it happen. It's kind of hard not to believe when you see it in real life. Right. And I was like, I want to give that same gift to others. I want to show them that it's possible. I want to show them that it's a lot of hard work. It's not easy. You have to really be driven. Right. All my door-to-door salesmen, all my salesmen, all my people that are willing to hustle and work hard, right? That are down with commission, income kind of things. Like, this is a huge opportunity because you can take all that drive and all that work ethic and turn it into an absolute fortune. And so I wanted to show people that it's real, right? It's not just some pipe dream. And so I went out and I set this goal. And I was like, okay, well, I can't just document myself here. I have a team. I have tens of thousands of dollars I can spend a month in marketing. I'm set up. I've done the hustle already. I have to start from scratch. So I jumped on a plane and I went to Tampa, Florida. I'd never been there. I chose Tampa, not because it's the best, but because it was January and it was nice and warm. And I did not want to be cold, right? And I was going to escape the Utah cold. And I thought, you know what? I have to do this all on my own. I can't have a team because most people, that's where they're going to be. And on top of that, I can't have a ton of money, right? I only got to have $1,000. So the goal is to turn the $1,000 into $40,000 in just 40 days in a whole new place where I'd never been, right? With my smartphone, my tablet, or my smartphone, my computer, and I rented a car and an Airbnb, right? And I went to work. And in the span of those 40 days, I did 3 deals where I passed those deals on for a finder's fee. So I didn't even close on the houses to pass them on, right? In the contract, I have a paragraph that says I can assign it to a new buyer for a fee, right? And that's exactly what I did. I passed on 3 flip opportunities and I made $93,000 on just those 3 deals. 2 of the deals I actually closed on and picked them up and kept them as rentals. 2 of them that came from Jerry that I talked about, right? We wholesaled one of the other ones, the third one for a $10,000 assignment fee. So, it was huge. It was life-changing because I now documented day by day what it looks like to hustle, to grind. And there's no one else out there that has done this, right? That has gone and started from scratch, started over on their own and shown exactly what it looks like talking to these sellers, meeting with these people and going through the process and showing you guys for absolutely free. So that's why I did it. I wanted to serve. I wanted to give back. I wanted to help people understand how real it is, how much work it is, but really how simple it is as well.
Yeah, Zach, thank you so much for sharing that story. And everyone definitely be sure to check that out. I think that, it probably will be an eye-opening experience to kind of have like a stand-like experience like Zack had, where you're having someone really show you and kind of peel back the curtain on what it really is. And I think I need that as well. So I look forward to watching that, Zack. And so I kind of want to dive into a little bit of what success is and what success means to you. You've had a lot of monetary success. You've had a lot of success in finding something that keeps you driven with a purpose. Like you've said, you find giving back and teaching people how to do this and having your podcast and your YouTube channel, being able to be a mentor for others. But what is your definition of success today? What do you define that term as, and what does it mean to you?
Well, I don't ever think it's a destination. Success is not a destination. It's not supposed to be. It's kind of like knowledge. The more you learn, the more your eyes are open to things you didn't even know about, right? The more you learn, the more you realize how little you know and how much more you have to learn. And I feel like success is the same way. Success is one of those things that you can always reach higher. You can always be better. You can always improve your character. I'll give you some examples of some of the things that I'm working on in my life right now. So I found that I had a really good looking dad bod and I needed to change that. And so I started working out. And I've been learning more and studying more about macronutrients and what's healthy and what's not healthy. And, learning how to be stronger. And, I started off only deadlifting like 180 pounds and I'm now deadlifting 400 pounds. I've made all this progress in my fitness and my strength. And I feel so good about that, and I find so much fulfillment in progress and moving forward, even though I feel silly and I feel dumb, especially when I start something new, finding people that know better than me, learning from other people, hiring mentors and advisors and helping me understand the direction and path that I need to take to accomplish these new goals. So, what one sentence answer, I think that success is progress.
Success is progress. Yeah. I love the not being a destination piece too. I think that's something I need to keep in the front of my mind because, it's a journey to get to where you want to go and your definition may change over time. So for those of you listening that are chasing success in one area or another, you don't have to define it based on if you get to that specific point A to B or whatnot. So I appreciate that, Zack. And, really the backbone of my show, the Eric Mueller Show, is to explore what makes a successful person's inner clock tick and what keeps them driven towards success. So for you, in terms of your career and life, what is the driving force or driving forces that keep your inner clock ticking towards that success that you're chasing?
That's something that I'm still discovering more and more. Maybe you've heard of this, and maybe the listeners heard of this, the 7 reasons why, or 7 levels deep of your why. You ask yourself, why am I this way? And then you ask yourself, well, why to that answer and why to the next, and you go 7 layers deep. And I think ultimately what drives us in a very, very primitive way is the fear of failure, the fear of pain, right? We're always going to take the path of least resistance. So a lot of the times people don't want to go to the gym because it's painful. We don't want to eat healthy because it's way, you feel much happier and you get all these nice little endorphins and good feeling chemicals when you eat a piece of cake versus a carrot, Yeah. And the thing is, what drives us to change is the pain of where we're at. The doctor says, hey, your blood pressure, your resting heart rate, you're potentially going to have type 2 diabetes. You get something like that and it really changes your thought process. The pain of that will push you to go have pain in the gym. I think what really drives people is the pain of doing the work is less painful than not having the success. I think ultimately that's what drives us. And then I think that there becomes a certain point that as you push long enough, that becomes who you are. It becomes your character. It becomes your personality. It becomes a habit, right? And when we have healthy habits, that's when we start to develop into this different type of person. Like I was watching this Instagram reel last night, actually. And it was, all my Instagram stuff's like fitness right now because I become obsessed with it because I want to change that in myself. And it was like this kickboxer hitting the bag, and the audio was, you and I are not the same. You have to force yourself to go to the gym. I have to force myself to take a day off to rest. Right. And it made me smile because I kind of feel that way now. But I know that 9 months ago, if I said I had to work out 6 days a week, I'm like, you are crazy. I'm too busy. I have kids and I have 2 companies and I don't have time for that nonsense. Right. And now I'm just like, I love it. I feel like it's a habit. I'm addicted to the endorphins. I feel strong. I feel healthy. I'm excited about the progress that I'm seeing and feeling. It's become a habit. And so I think that, ultimately the foundation of my why is the fear of pain. I look back to the moment that there was pain for me, and it was the day my son was born. What pushed me to ultimately go for real estate and become obsessed, listen to podcasts and start reading books and really trying to figure out a way to change my financial situation. My son's going to be 8 this fall, but when he was born, I had bought a couple rentals and had some success somewhat in the real estate space. But I remember the day he was born, we got the bill. It was like $7,000 or $8,000. I thought the insurance was going to cover it. And all I could think about was, how am I going to pay these medical bills? I couldn't even enjoy the moment. And I was so mad at myself because I wasn't enjoying the most amazing, magical day of my life because all I could think about was the money. And that pain and that feeling of I'm a failure, I'm letting my family down, and I can't even enjoy the moment because I know that I'm a loser. Like that was painful. It really crushed me. And I think that moments like that are good for us because that pain drives us to be something that we're not at the moment. And then ultimately, if you keep pushing and focus on that pain and push through the hard parts of doing the work, it'll ultimately become a habit and change our own character.
Right. Yeah, wonderfully stated. I think pushing through pain and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations is the way to promote change in your own life. And Zack, man, thank you so much for coming on the show today, talking about these, wonderful insights and tips in the real estate and investing space, talking about mindset, talking about what to avoid. So if you recall the earlier part of the episode, what to avoid with common real estate mistakes, if you missed that, rewind back and listen to it. We'll tag everything in the show notes here for Zack as far as how to access his YouTube channel, his website. And Zack, if someone wants to reach out to you and learn more, what would be your preferred contact method?
Well, there's a couple ways. If you guys want to know more specifically about the coaching, you can talk to my right hand. She's absolutely amazing. She works alongside me to help people understand what's in the program and so forth. You can book a call with her. You just go to my website. I'm sure it'll be tagged and book a call to learn more about the program and how it's structured and how it works and how to get full access to my cell phone and so forth and have direct access to me as your mentor. If you just want to hit me up and say hi and tell me you like the podcast or whatever, I'm super active on my Instagram DMs. So you could send me a direct message there and I don't have like a VA or anything answering that. I answer those. So
awesome. Well, Zack, founder of Driving for Dollars Mastery, thank you for joining us today on the podcast. We appreciate your time. We look forward to continuing to follow your journey.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.